What's going on YouTube today? In this exact video, I'm going to show you the exact funnel that we used and the STC system that allowed Harley to generate over $500,000 for his coaching program completely organic. I'll show you how TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube actually feed into this funnel, where most creators are going to lose leads, and how we built a follow-up system that turns attention into driving revenue. Make sure you stay until the very end because I'm going to show you the very single point where most creators are actually killing their conversion. All right, so we'll go ahead and just jump straight into it. Now, in terms of our top of funnel, this is where we're primarily going to be starting. We had our TikTok and Instagram was just getting posted with lifestyle and relatable content. Our social traffic was essentially getting derived from these two. Mostly, we had some sort of lifestyle on YouTube, but mainly TikTok and Instagram. Now, the lifestyle was here to build familiarity. It was talking head videos to humanize the creator, POV and journey-based clips, wins, lessons, and kind of day-to-day relatability. The purpose for the top of funnel and for the TikTok and Instagram was really just to, one, get attention and build comfort around the creator. These platforms aren't meant to sell. They're just meant to warm up people and, honestly, like I said, get eyeballs on the creator. Now, what we would take is from this route, from any sort of TikTok, Instagram DMs, essentially we wouldn't even sell them. We would just send them to the free training, right? Answer some questions, light qualification only, direct into the funnel, no objection handling or closing in the DM. So we didn't do any of that. Most of it came directly from going to the training, right? And oftentimes, I do want to mention as well, we still had the links in the TikTok and in the Instagram for directly to the free training. Now, the next step is once they got dragged to the direct to the training, and I want to make sure that you guys understand this as well. DMs act as traffic control, not as a sales process. Especially with this niche, we found out that, or specifically with this creator's ICP, the DMs, yes, we could have ran a DM funnel. Yes, we could have gotten some closes on the DMs. But in order to actually truly optimize on such an up and coming niche, it's better that these people were able to get the full grasp of the information before we go ahead and pitch them on anything. So the free training was a high volume entry point. We would get multiple opt-ins a day essentially, and the goal with these guys was, one, have a lead magnet for, like I said, for mass opt-ins. It's a low resistance offer. Typically it's going to be younger demographic with a lower ICP, so people who don't have as much capital or people who are just now seeing business for the first time. They see, okay, it's a free training, let me click on it. This is designed to educate and pre-frame the offer. So inside the free training, we're still giving them hints of the hope of what's inside the one-on-one, but not fully just talking about it, not fully building the gap upon the one-on-one. It's really just to provide as much game as possible, as much sauce as possible to the ICP and allow them to transition to want to become a buyer. Right, so the free training fills the pipeline, and it's the follow-up is what monetizes it. So this is a big part of what actually allowed us to get majority of our cash collection. So from this as well, I want to mention the free training would still have that CTA to go to the one-on-one, because again, we would always want these guys to fill out a one-on-one application so they understand a little bit more about the one-on-one aspect and understanding that they're getting in the mindset, okay, this is a business, I'm going to have to invest my money, time into it, right? So primary CTA from the free training was just to go to the one-on-one. From this YouTube, so the YouTube is where we would really just build off of the educational and trust content. So kind of more think of it of the middle funnel. This is where we would really nurture the leads. So the long form educational videos, this was Miro boards, breakdowns, framework breakdowns, transparent explanations of the business model, and then it's just authority and trust building, right? Again, we did have a couple of vlogs in there, but majority of what I've seen to help this creator specifically scale was just getting as much educational content out there as humanly possible. Now, the second thing that we would go to is just the high intent direction path. So from this long form, we would just directly CTA them into the one-on-one. YouTube viewers already are going to trust the creator. So most of the time they would just skip the free training. So the biggest way that we would get the one-on-ones is just through the YouTube, right? So through the YouTube one-on-one, they would have a higher belief, higher capital, and this requires fast speed to lead. What we noticed is that through this system, that if you were not onto the speed to lead, within 5 minutes, these guys were not answering the phone. It was super hard to get them on the phone, let alone, still in that buying state, right? Now, we had two types of qualification processes. We're just going to go down. So if they had no capital, right? No capital, they would go down through the YouTube nurture process. So we would go ahead, essentially hop on the phone with them. If they had no money, again, we would call them up and just send them free YouTube videos, continuing nurturing them, and then following up with them on a weekly basis in order to provide future closers. So when they would be ready, we'd go ahead, and that's when we would jump into the conversion process. I want to go ahead and just move this so you guys can see it. But hold on. All right, yeah. But before I go ahead and jump into what the conversion was like, we would still go ahead and just talk about the other way, right? If they did have capital, and both paths still emerge into the sales system. Now, both paths have the qualification process. Now, if they have capital, yes, what we would do, we had the STC system, right? So this is staffing tech conversion, right? So when it comes to the staffing, we had setters handle the lead volume, closers handle sales calls, and a clear role separation, and speed to lead was the biggest priority on the system. Now, in terms of the tech, the proper staffing always is going to ensure that you guys are being able to be as efficient and as effective as humanly possible. That's what we want. We had a short staff team with as much efficiency as possible. So these guys are getting daily trained. These guys were specifically trained for this ICP and was able to handle every single demographic or objection that came their way. When it comes to the CRM for tracking, this is what really separated us and allowed us to be able to hit $500,000. Now, we had a dialer for call volume, SMS for follow-up, and pipelines and automations. Just some of those pipelines and automations were SMS weekly. Let's just say we had a multiple follow-up system when it comes to calling and people not answering. We would put them in a certain pipeline and they would get constantly hit up by new setters, by old setters when they didn't have anything to hit up. We would have that bucket of people that we could always just contact and see what we could make happen with that massive amount of leads. Again, this was all coming from the free training and what really allowed us to separate. Now, the biggest thing is that if we noticed that they were qualified, we would send them a pre-call prep before hopping on a call. This was mandatory before them getting on the call. The reason why the pre-call prep is so important is because it handles objections. It gets them in the buying state. And if they can watch 5-minute video filled with testimonials, they are going to be so much more convicted when they hop on the call. So then from there, we would call book, scheduled, the call would happen, and then this is how the conversion would happen, right? In terms of the conversion process, reactivation loops, successful conversion, it's a little bit different ways. So let's just go ahead and talk about the first successful conversion, right? If they automatically close a transaction, cash collected result is just going to be predictable revenue. Now, if they did not close, right, we had a reactivation loop. So this is the follow-up and reactivation loop. What this looked like is 12 touch points in 3 days, double dialing, SMS follow-ups, weekly SMS blasts, and an Act Now bundle, which really came in clutch for allowing us to get that short notice cash collection on hand. So if we had, if we noticed that we weren't getting that same influx of leads that we have, we would always drop these Act Now bundles and would always allow us to get a couple extra grand on the board. Now, most creators lose money because they stop following up too early. Again, 12 touch points in 3 days is we were hammering down on these guys to make sure that they're not leaving until they either say, F off, or, that they get on the phone with us. And we've realized they don't have any capital. Again, you know what we would do? Just put them back into the nurturing YouTube process. But like I said, most creators lose money because they stop following up and they don't have any sort of reactivation loop. And this is what we found out to really be able to separate us from the competition, right? Revenue outcomes represent the final stage of the funnel. Obviously, you guys just saw we were able to generate $500,000 with this funnel. Now, the STC method is what turns organic traffic into predictable revenue. As I said, I walked you through the staffing, tech, conversion. We also, on the conversion side, had identity framing before the call. So on the setting call, we would identity frame with the setters. So the prospect can already get in the mindset that, okay, I'm making the change today. Pre-call preparation, urgency creation, objection handling, and a big thing that is super slept on is group chat introduction. We actually made the prospect introduce themselves on the call. So then that way, it actually allowed them to communicate, and it's so much harder to no show two people rather than just no showing one, because obviously you're going to be looking, if I'm the prospect, it's hard, it's easier for me to just not respond to one person than have two people calling me saying that, hey, I'm going to change my life, text both of them this, and then just not go back on your word, right? People are not going to want to just go back on their word, and we really found this out when we saw the boost in our show up rate. As you can see, over this long period of the stretch that we were working with Harley, we had an 86% show up rate with an average close rate of 60%, right? And then an average deal size of just under $2,000. But this is the STC system. This is what allowed us to generate $500,000 in just 8 months with Mr. Harley Hemmings here. And the biggest thing that I want to touch upon as well too, oftentimes from the free training, if these guys were, had any sort of money, they would still go through that same exact process. But this is the exact system that we've used and the exact system that I've used to sell other multiple creators. If you guys want to see other breakdowns on, because this was a simple sales opt-in funnel. If you guys want to see other funnels, how I break down for my other clients, feel free to comment down below. Now, with that being said, if you guys are interested in working with me one-on-one, if you're an agency owner or if you're an offer owner that is interested in having these sorts of similar results, go ahead and hit that first link below. That's going to allow you to see if we're going to be a right fit. Now, if you are a sales rep that is interested in working with me and getting plugged into a system like this, just go ahead and click that first link as well for you, and that would make sure to see if what we have here can actually be the best fit for you. Without further ado, let me know how you guys liked the video. Like, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.